Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. In our last episode, we explored Chapter 4 of Handbook of Abhidhamma Studies, Volume 3, where we studied matter, rupa, and its conditional roles. We saw how karma, consciousness, temperature, and nutriment sustain physical phenomena and how mind and body interact in conditional terms. Today we move into Chapter 5, Dependent Origination Revisited. Dependent origination, paticcasamuppada, is one of the most profound teachings of the Buddha. It explains how suffering arises due to conditions and how it can cease when conditions are broken. In this chapter, we connect conditional relations with the 12 links of dependent origination. We'll explain how ignorance conditions formations, how this cycle perpetuates samsāra, and how observing dependent origination in meditation reveals impermanence and non-self. Finally, we'll see how breaking the links leads to liberation. So, if you've ever wondered, how does Buddhism explain the cycle of suffering? How do conditional relations connect to dependent origination? How can meditation reveal impermanence and non-self? This chapter will guide us. In Abhidhamma, conditional relations, Pakaya explain how dhammas condition one another. Dependent origination applies this principle to the cycle of birth and death. The 12 links are 1. Ignorance, avidya; 2. Formations, sankhara; 3. Consciousness, vijnana; 4. Name and form, namarupa; 5. 6 sense bases, salayatana; 6. Contact, phassa; 7. Feeling, vedana; 8. Craving, tanha; 9. Clinging, upadana; 10. Becoming, bhava; 11. Birth, yati; 12. Aging and death, yara marana. Each link is conditioned by the previous. Together they explain how samsāra continues. This is conditionality applied to the cycle of suffering. The cycle begins with ignorance. Ignorance means not seeing reality clearly, not seeing impermanence, suffering, and non-self. Ignorance conditions formations, sankhara. Formations are volitional activities, karma. When ignorance is present, volition is unwholesome. For example, when we act out of greed, hatred, or delusion, ignorance conditions unwholesome formations. These formations plant seeds for future suffering. So ignorance is the root. Formations are the actions conditioned by ignorance. Together they set the cycle in motion. Formations condition consciousness. Consciousness arises due to past karma. Consciousness conditions name and form. Name refers to mental phenomena, feeling, perception, volition, consciousness. Form refers to physical phenomena, the body. Together they make up the psycho-physical organism. Name and form condition the 6 sense bases: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. These bases allow contact with the world. The sense bases condition contact. Contact is the meeting of organ, object, and consciousness. Contact conditions feeling. Feeling can be pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Feeling conditions craving. Pleasant feeling leads to desire. Unpleasant feeling leads to aversion. Neutral feeling leads to ignorance. Craving conditions clinging. Clinging is attachment to sense pleasures, to views, to rituals, to self. Clinging conditions becoming. Becoming is the process of existence driven by karma. Becoming conditions birth. Birth is the arising of a new life. Birth conditions aging and death. With birth, aging, and death inevitably follow. This completes the cycle of samsāra. It shows how ignorance leads to suffering through a chain of conditions. In meditation, we can observe dependent origination directly. For example, we notice how feeling conditions craving. Pleasant feeling leads to desire. Unpleasant feeling leads to aversion. We notice how craving conditions clinging. Desire leads to attachment. We notice how mindfulness conditions wisdom, awareness leads to insight. This observation reveals impermanence. We see that feelings arise and cease, craving arises and ceases, consciousness arises and ceases. It also reveals non-self. We see that phenomena arise due to conditions, not due to a permanent self. So, observing dependent origination in meditation reveals impermanence and non-self. It deepens insight and weakens attachment. The good news is that the cycle can be broken. When ignorance ceases, formation ceases. When formation ceases, consciousness ceases, and so on until aging and death cease. This is the path to liberation. By cultivating wisdom, we remove ignorance. By practicing mindfulness, we weaken craving. By realizing impermanence, suffering, and non-self, we break the chain. This leads to nibbana, the cessation of suffering. Some critics say dependent origination is too complex. Why 12 links? Isn't this over-analysis? But the purpose is precision. Just as a scientist studies causes in detail, the Buddha explained suffering in detail. Another criticism is that it is too abstract, but in practice, even a basic understanding helps us see conditionality. We don't need to memorize all 12 links, we just need to see that suffering arises due to conditions and can cease when conditions are broken. So, to conclude, Chapter 5 of Volume 3 revisits dependent origination. We've connected conditional relations with the 12 links. We've explained how ignorance conditions formations and how this cycle perpetuates samsāra. We've highlighted practical insight. Observing dependent origination in meditation reveals impermanence and non-self, and we've shown how breaking the links leads to liberation. Most importantly, we've seen how this helps us in practice. By observing conditionality, we deepen insight and move toward freedom. Thank you so much for joining me in this deep dive into Chapter 5 of Handbook of Abhidhamma Studies, Volume 3. We've journeyed through dependent origination, seeing how suffering arises due to conditions and how breaking conditions leads to liberation. If you found this exploration helpful, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with others who might be interested in Buddhist philosophy and meditation. In our next episode, we'll move into Chapter 6, where we explore karma and its nuances, seeing how volition functions as a condition and how karma interacts with other forces to shape experience. Until then, may you be well, may you be peaceful, and may you continue your journey into wisdom.